Well, I'm so excited to be here because I've been an SEO Moz and a Moz customer for years now. Once SEO was not so easy anymore. So, in 1998, right, when web crawlers out there and anybody could put anything up there and land on page one, sure, no problem.
Yep.
Then as Google starts to come around and some of the more advanced search engines, then it actually was difficult. I reverted to Moz, right? I said, okay, I can't do this on my own anymore. Let me go. And I have been a customer, but also on the journey, continued to receive so much education from you, so much more insights that have allowed me to do the stuff I'm able to do. And you guys have done content marketing so well. You guys have done SEO so well that I just want to thank you and say,
oh, well, that's very kind, Jeff. Hey, I'm thrilled to hear that Moz has been helpful. Thrilled to have you as a customer. Thrilled to be on the show.
Yeah, so I was an early adopter of location. I was an early adopter of content too. And I love to see that you guys take feedback and you invest in the UI and you invest in new tools, but you continue to release them on that cycle that we need to. That one page is new, great. It's awesome when I know what to look forward to. I don't have to wait for the version 2, right?
Right.
And 1 year later. So I love that agile approach that you guys take. And I like the integration of web dev and content together, right?
And that's pretty important for SEO best practices, right? That fundamentally you have to be crawlable, you have to have the right structure, you've got to have your markup correct, and then your content has to engage visitors, and it has to target the right keywords, and it has to, use schema and all these other opportunities. So I think marrying the technical and kind of the creative and the content, that is the underpinnings of modern SEO. Right?
Yeah.
You're not going to have search engine success if you don't do both.
I love the Office Space analogy, right? When he's defending his job and he says the customers can't talk to the engineers, and now with modern marketing being so interconnected with development, it's like the marketers can't talk to the web devs, and somebody's got to tell them that the sitemap's important, right?
Right.
And that's what I feel SEO has kind of become, is this defense of a position, but really it's like so much more important than that. It's the strategy. It's somebody's got to be a referee here. Somebody's got to know the rules. Somebody's got to be able to have the teams come together and work in unity, and then also keep their eye on what's changing, what's going on.
Absolutely agree. Yeah.
And so when you started to put out Whiteboard Fridays, I started watching them very quickly, and you saw the shift. You were out there. You weren't defending SEO forever. You started to say, there's other things we should do. Let's look at email. Let's look at, one of the most comprehensive videos I've seen on what content marketing was your Whiteboard Friday explaining it,
yeah,
right?
Thanks.
And you wouldn't think that from an SEO, right? You would think that from a content marketer. And so I love that you guys invest back into it. So one of your sessions here was the worst advice marketing ever gave to content. So what was the topic about? What was the big key points?
Yeah, this was a discussion that Joe and I kicked off over email when we were talking about, what session to do here at Content Marketing World. And I think it really stemmed from the experiences that I've had with marketers who have heard particular, often snippets of advice that are not fully in context, that bias their actions and their decisions around how they invest in bad ways, right? In ways that are not productive, that just have unfortunate impact on their marketing and their content success, their SEO success. So it's things like correlation isn't just causation. Obviously, it's not necessarily causal, but it's also not a recommendation. So you see these terrible things where a study comes out, and the study it has reputable data. It's from a high quality source. Buffer comes out and they say, hey, the content that tends to perform best on Twitter is the content that's tweeted at 4:08 p.m. on Wednesdays, East Coast time. And so then what happens, right? You get a ton of marketers who are thinking, oh, I should promote my tweets. I'm going to schedule all my tweets for 4:08 p.m. Eastern time on my Twitter account. And what do you get? A ton of tweets that happen at that time that are all saturated. No one can get through their entire feed, so the tweets get ignored. The correlation exists for a reason, but it should not make you say, oh, I should tweet at exactly that same time. It should make you think, hey, you know what? I should analyze when my audience is most engaged on Twitter, and I should analyze when I can stand out best, and what is the time when the fewest number of my competitors' accounts that my audience also follows are tweeting, but my audience is still engaged. That's the time for me. It's not that the advice is useless, right? It has, with the right context, it means something, and it should suggest an action, just not the simplistic action that you are taking away. And so I tried to come up with a lot of these different snippets of marketing advice, like that. Another great piece of advice: make great content. Yeah, but not in a vacuum.
Yeah.
Right? You can't. You and I could come together. We could put together the best possible podcast in the world, and if we did no marketing, forget about it. Right?
Yeah.
No one's going to see it. No one's going to hear it. No one's going to amplify it. It doesn't matter. We have to combine the quality with the reach and the audience approach, and the how do we market this, and what channels do we use, and when do we use those channels, and who is the target audience, and how do we make sure that they care about this before we ever create it. All these different things. So yeah, it was a fun session for sure.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
had a lot of nice tweets out of it, and a bunch of engagement. A lot of folks come up after and say they enjoyed it. And yeah, I'm passionate about making sure that the wrong advice is not used.
Oh, yeah. But I mean, one of the cool things I've seen is, you talk about amplification of the message. And for a long time, you have been the voice of Moz, right? You've been the face, you've been on everything.
Sure.
And then over the past couple of years, all of a sudden, other faces are being introduced,
Yeah.
right? And then I go to a presentation at Content Marketing Conference where, a new face is there. I think it was Erica, right?
Yeah.
And
Yep.
she's up on stage and she's telling her story, but she has a different voice from it because it comes from more of a female background, and just her kind of alt nature, and everything's like, it's like the person talking isn't somebody saying what Rand would say.
Right.
It's saying what Erica would say as a community person. And I think that shows that evolution that marketers need to start doing in their organizations when they talk about voice and producing content and all that stuff, is start to think of how do you amplify both externally and internally, right? To get, it's just not more content, but it's more voices and listening to people and reaching new audiences and using social, but not like Buffer does, right? And not like, but who you are, right?
Yeah, I think that for Moz, authenticity has always been a really important part of our brand, which is why you get a very unfiltered version of whoever it is from Moz, right? Whether it's me or Sarah, or when he was at Moz, Cyrus, or Jen Lopez when she was there, or folks like Brittany Mueller who's now there, or Dr. Pete, right? You get like their authentic, real, personal opinions, and sometimes those are not necessarily fully complimentary of the brand, right? So I might go on Twitter and say, hey, you know what? I think Ahrefs has a better link index than we do right now, and I would use them if you're doing this type of link research, and I would use us if you're doing this type of link research, right? And that's very authentic. It doesn't necessarily say, well, wait a minute, Rand, shouldn't you probably be promoting the company that you founded and not one of your competitors? But that's not what I'm doing, right? Like when I'm helping a lot, nonprofits or startups that I help out, I'm using both tools, so it's pretty dishonest of me to promote just my own stuff, right? And I think that's how it should be.
I had this awesome teaching opportunity with the kids this past week. So we were getting ready to leave, and so I wanted to take them out for donuts because they're staying with Nana. And the lady at the donut shop, very nice lady, and I order 8, and she goes, well, it's cheaper for you to buy a dozen, so why don't you pick 4 more, and then I could give you the dozen price. And I'd sit down with the kids, and I'm like, do you see that? Did you see that she gave us more and charged us less because she knew that the customer was the more important part and not the money? And so, yeah, if you give advice to go to another agency or go to another platform for the stuff that they are truly better than you at,
right,
it's always going to return in numbers to them coming back to you.
Yeah, I think that whether I believe that is true, right, and I've certainly seen the impact of having a authentic and honest personality, or whatever you want to call it, in the sphere of marketing. But I also think, even if it didn't work, even if it was not high return on investment, even if it was a competitive disadvantage, it is still the right thing to do. Mm-hmm. And in my opinion, that is way more important than I made a few more dollars from it, right? So I just can't. I can't make that trade-off of dollars versus right thing to do.
Exactly, and I think that's one of the things you see authentic businesses that are founded by people who have that. I don't want to mess over people. I'm in business because I have to, right? It's like this is like the rules I have to play by, but I'm not going to play by this, extort and do whatever.
Oh my God, I'm not right. It's not like I'm stealing food so I can feed myself and my wife. Like that is. We are very, very, very far away from that.
Yeah.
Right. And so given that subsistence survival is covered, the next thing to worry about is, am I doing right by, the world, by my audience?
And that's the stuff that comes out to your team, and that's why they stick around and they love you. And I think marketing teams, as they start to grow, because we've heard that these content marketing teams were starting small and they're getting bigger and bigger, right? Cleveland Clinic's a great example, from 3 to 24.
Wow.
And now they've got to, structure a bigger thing. If you had alternative motives of not doing the content strategy or trying to oversell or doing things like that, your team's gonna it's going to mold who they are, or they're going to leave, right? And they're going to walk away. And I wonder how much of you being from Seattle and running Moz from Seattle, like, it has to do with the way you've organized and structured the company. Because when I go to Seattle, that's that feeling that I get. People are authentic, they're real, but they want to.
Well, and there's sort of this, Seattle, and even more so Portland, Oregon, but the Northwest has kind of a a small brand bias, right? Where if you're from Seattle, you don't go to Starbucks. That is against the rules. You got to go to your local coffee shop where they roast the beans themselves, where they have, this special thing. I call it like the Portlandiaization, right, of the world. And so I think there's a degree to which that is also true and extends into the types of marketing that I appreciate and love, right? I love what small brands that no one's ever heard of are doing. I love when there's something very unique. I'm not a big fan of like, look at the incredible P&G marketing. They have billions of dollars to play with. Of course they're going to do great stuff, right? What about the guy who just started something in his basement? What about the woman who's a solo entrepreneur who built her business from the ground up, who's now doing $1 million in revenue a year? That's the stuff I love, right? That's the stuff I want to amplify. That's who I want to support.
There's a reason Blendtec and Marcus Sheridan are still, right, those key things that we go to, because they did what we all wished we could do. I created a blender, so I threw an iPhone in there. And I still remember watching that video going, that was a $500 device that he just blended. I want that blender.
Yep.
Right. And so, you guys, but you were there too. You guys with Whiteboard Fridays, with that introduction to the education side, not just the entertainment, and really embracing video, because there's a time that people sit down, and we've seen that with the how-to, right? How-to is moving way out of content, away from the about.coms and more into the video side. And you guys were there, and you were pioneering it, and you were pushing the envelope and saying, let me put the instructions behind you and walk through it.
Yeah.
And I think so many people can still learn from not just the SEO benefits that you give us out through those videos, but really that content marketing effort.
Yeah, the interesting thing, there's a few interesting things about Whiteboard Friday. One is that we obviously use Wistia to host it on our own website. But then 90 days later, we'll take that same video and post it to YouTube so that you can find it both through Google, but we rank for it, right, on our site as opposed to YouTube ranking for it. And we rank for it on YouTube because the YouTube video exists on there. And so we can kind of get the double benefit. Usually it's like Moz is number 1 and then YouTube is number 2. And so we capture you kind of both ways.
Yeah.
Second thing that is true for Whiteboard Friday is a lot of people, and this is probably something most folks don't know, a lot of people who visit the Whiteboard Friday pages read the transcript, use the snippets of the whiteboard and the images, but don't actually watch the video, at least not all the way through. So you'll see, I think on average we get maybe 20, 25,000 visits in the first week to a Whiteboard Friday. About 10,000 of those watch the actual video, maybe 8 to 10,000. And then the remainder are consuming the content. They do have high engagement, high pages per visit, high a low bounce rate, right? All those things that you want. But they're engaging with the content through the written and the images, not the video itself. And so that, I think, surprises a lot of content creators because they think, wait, shouldn't I just create the video? No, if you can capture some of the stills from the video, if you can capture the transcript, if you can turn that into both text and image content to go along with the video, you can reach an even bigger audience.
Absolutely.
And that's been, a huge win for us.
Today, real time is the only time that counts. To stay relevant, you have to stay ahead. Your customers want the right information, right now, wherever they are. So how do you meet the demands of today's customers? By marketing in context. Context accounts for a customer's interaction with your brand. So each touch builds on the next, creating more meaningful experiences for your customers. At Sitecore, we call this context marketing. To do it well, you need marketing technology that has three things: contextual intelligence, content management, and omni-channel automation. Contextual intelligence gives you the information you need about your consumers, so the content you manage is more relevant and is automatically delivered wherever your customers are. The Sitecore Experience platform was built for context marketing, so you can create a more personalized customer experience. Demand more from your marketing technology. Demand more from marketing. Own the experience. Sitecore.
I know when people ask me about video, they're like, why do you video this? Audio is so much easier. And podcasting's only audio, it's never video. I'm like, if I get the video, I have the audio.
Right.
If I have the audio, I have the text. Now
Yes.
I've got 3 pieces of content, and that's just in raw form. I can cut these up. I can get closed captioning on there. Bam, it's out. I can put it on Facebook, and nobody wants to hit play on the Facebook feed, but they'll read the words as it goes by, right? And then I can take that transcript, and I got 10 articles waiting for this,
Yep.
one post. And all I had to do was capture everything, set up the environment, and make it authentic and real.
Yeah.
And so that's why I do video. And I'm the one that actually watches the videos. I get the email and I sit down and I put my phone up on the table and I'm sitting back and I want to listen and watch from you. But then when I email it to other people, our clients or other people I'm trying to help it with, I take those snippets and I share it with them. And then I use the other content you're creating to then
I love the
broadcast the message.
ability to take one piece of captured content and turn that into multiple formats that can target multiple channels, multiple audiences in the ways that they care about. I think that's true. That's real content empathy.
Yeah.
Right? That's saying I am not just trying to help me, I am trying to figure out the format that works best for you. I'm trying to figure out the content that works best for you, and I'm happy to present that in multiple kinds of ways, and you can choose how you want to consume that. You could take this video and turn it into 30 seconds on Snapchat. You could turn it into a few seconds on Instagram. You could turn it into one still image that you use to promote it on Facebook. If images work best for you to get the highest reach on Facebook, whatever it is, I think that is, that's killer. That's a great way to think about any type of content you create.
And it's not that scary. So you're behind the scenes video of showing how you do Whiteboard Fridays, right?
Yeah.
You pull it back and you say, okay, here's the 2 lights that I have, right?
Yep.
Here's my headlight, here's my key light, and then I got to light that whiteboard. And here's some examples on why, when we didn't think of that and how do you get the shadow out, right? And what you learned from green screen and all these other things. It's like when you run into these problems, you run out to the world that's done it before, right? So you got the motion picture and you go, how do they do that stuff, right? And then you come back and you try it. And you talked about having the cheap lights and then upgrading to the bigger lights. And that's the stuff that people are just like, oh, now I'm starting to get it. I can start to use this source. I understand. He walked me through it, just like he walked me through Whiteboard Fridays, right?
Sure, right.
I'm getting so much more out of it. And it wasn't because you were trying to get sneaky and sell us more Moz. It was because you heard the question, how do you guys film this? We're trying to get into it. And so that's why I love that you guys are so authentic and open about it. And
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate it.
super clean platform. And like you said, even when other people do things a little bit differently, right? So
Yeah.
the keywords are different. That's okay. Like you can't just have one tool for everything we do. So just the other day you mentioned, Spider and using
Yeah.
Spider for these things. Absolutely. When we crawl websites, because we're doing a content migration, I can't go into Moz and say export everything. I can go
Right.
into Spider, pull it down, run some
Yeah,
regex on
Screaming
it.
Frog or
Yeah.
onpage.org. Yep.
Anything.
You want, I think that if you are in our space and you want to be authoritative, you can't have that bias, right? I think that certainly our customers are just trained to expect that we are going to talk about the things that are true and relevant, and we're going to have full coverage and not just limit it to here's what you can do with Moz. I think this is a mistake that a lot of brands make because, you know, the manager or the CEO says, what the hell are you doing promoting our competitors? How do you do that? That is not why we create content. That's not how this works. Like, and yet that's the complete wrong mentality. You're never going to be a thought leader promoting only yourself. And you're never going to earn that trust.
Yeah. You could sit back and watch, you know, over in Redmond, what's going on there, right?
Oh, yeah.
They locked down Azure when they first went live with it for only Windows, only ASP.NET. And then Satya comes in, and all of a sudden, Visual Studio on a Mac, you know, ASP.NET anywhere, everything's open source, Linux in the cloud, and people are embracing it.
Yes.
Because it's...
And you can see that in Microsoft stock price, and you can feel it from the employees there. There's kind of this like, oh, wait a minute. We might still be a giant. Like, we might be able to keep competing in this world because we're not so myopic as to be unable to see outside of ourselves.
People are coming back to work there, right? It's exciting to see that when you start to embrace others in an ecosystem, that it really does turn around and be good for you. So what are some parting thoughts that you would give a content marketer who, you know, is reaching out? They're trying to do things, but let's say they're the norm. They don't have a strategy. What would you tell them if you could, if it was your money they were spending and they had an effort without the strategy?
I mean, I think that the most important things to establish up front are, what is it that we're uniquely good at doing and creating? What are we particularly passionate about, right? I think if it's very tough to have a competitive advantage and to stand out in a field where you just don't care. Right? So if you say, hey, I'm not that into photography, I'm not that into visual design, I don't really care about, you know, I never use platforms like Instagram and Pinterest. Well, guess what? That is probably not the place where you're going to compete and not the place where you're going to earn your audience. You're a great writer, you care about text, written content is your passion. Great. Let's think about Medium. Let's think about Twitter. Let's think about how we can promote those pieces on Facebook. Let's think about, you know, what is a compelling visual that might accompany your text, but I grant you're not the person to write it. That's fine. I don't encourage people to chase after the latest, hottest thing just because there's engagement on that platform or just because that thing is hot right now. You should concentrate on where your strengths are. Second thing I would say is make sure that you identify a real need and desire from your audience, and that you can serve that in an empathetic way that is also keenly connected to your brand, right? So Whiteboard Friday is great because it unintentionally, right? We didn't know what the hell we were doing, but it turned out, right? It turned out that it built a brand of its own, and it had this memorability to it, right? The name is memorable, the format's memorable, the you know, the host is memorable because he looks ridiculous with his crazy hair and mustache and whatever, right?
I think you brought back the whole mustache craze. I think it was your fault. You know?
Do you know the story of this mustache? No. All right, so it's, what was it, the end of 2013, and I am talking to my team about like how important it is for us to return to profitability. I want Moz to be profitable again, and so I made a commitment like, I'm going to grow my mustache until we're profitable again. And then I stepped down as CEO, and Sarah took over, and her strategy was very different. She's like, no, we're going to spend in order to grow, and like we're going to invest, we're going to raise more money, like all these things.
Amazon approach.
And so now I've been mustaching it for 2.5 years, and yep, it's just kind of a nightmare that grows on my face. Yeah. But yeah, I think actually Moz is about to be profitable, maybe December or January, so I'll finally get to shave it. But oh man, what a journey. Yeah. So anyway, yeah. So all these brandable things, right, that are connected to the format of the video, that have this resonance about them. And I think that's something to consider in the content that you create. If you can find something that resonates, that becomes a series, that becomes very memorable, that has an approach, as opposed to, oh, you know, BuzzFeed is really successful with their, you know, top X listicle format. We'll do a bunch of listicles. come on. That's just lazy thinking. It's lazy authoring. I get that you saw a study that lists tend to perform well on whatever medium you are using or thinking about using. It's not brandable. It's not going to make you stand out, right? Come up with that thing that will make you stand out. And I think that is really important. I'd also say 2 other things. Number 1, you got to give yourself room to experiment and fail. Content is not like advertising. It is not where you pour a bunch of dollars in and then you see how many dollars come out the next month and you decide which channels to keep investing in and where you're going to tweak and tune. That's not how content works, right? That's not how SEO works. That's not how email marketing works. That is not how any form of organic social media. This is an experimental process, right? And it takes a long time to learn to get good at it. Whiteboard Friday was our worst performing content for 2 years when we started it. It wasn't until year 3 that it started being on par. And now, 7, 8 years in, it is our best performing content. So you got to give yourself that time and that room to experiment. And then the other thing I think I'd say is do not be afraid to go after highly competitive spaces, but make sure that there's a way that you can provide unique value that is different from what your competition's doing in that space. You can't expect to just, hey, we'll do the same thing but better.
Yeah.
That is not unique, right? That's not unique value. And you can't just say, well, our content is unique because we wrote different words than they wrote. That is also not unique value.
Yeah, don't be an SEO and don't grab a whiteboard and put a video.
Right. I mean, you've got to have a way that you're providing value that no one else can provide. Maybe you have data that no one else can access. Maybe you have personalities that no one else can replicate. Maybe you have access to a repository of visuals or images that no one else has access to. Whatever it is, you can find your unique value and play off that.
Awesome. Well, thank you for your time today. And I know
my pleasure.
You had, great sessions yesterday and today, and that, you're a busy person. But when I saw that we got you on the show, I started to capitalize your name, and it was one of those things because I've so admired the information you provided, and I've learned so much.
Oh, thanks, man.
Even though I've been in SEO forever, right? This is my 22nd year on the internet, but it's like I still think that you're doing some great stuff. So keep it going.
Appreciate it.
Can't wait for the next updates to Moz Pro.
All right. Yeah. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks for having me.
There are so many marketing tools to choose from these days. More than 3,500 the last time we checked. If you're overwhelmed and confused, you're not alone. With so many options, marketers are having a difficult time trying to select which tools will meet their team's unique needs. So why do the top content marketing teams choose DVHQ? It's because of our unique focus. Let me explain. The typical content marketing process looks something like this. You start with a defined strategy, then you ideate and brainstorm with your team. Create a plan of attack, produce the content, optimize it, then publish and promote the content, and finally, review the analytics to see how your content performed. As you may know, most marketing software tools are built to support the back half of this process. There are countless CMS platforms, email marketing tools, marketing automation systems, social publishing tools, analytics suites, etc. The list goes on and on. But here's the thing. The back half of the process is not where companies are really struggling. What marketing teams are really struggling with is the upfront part of the process, the strategy, the ideation, planning, workflow, and collaboration during the content production process. Sound familiar? If you don't get your upfront strategy and planning right, the odds of consistently publishing great content is, well, not very good. So these upfront areas are where we focus 100%. We don't want to reinvent wheels or be a jack of all trades, master of none type of content marketing solution. DVHQ is on a mission to build a content marketing platform that makes it incredibly easy for you to plan and produce high quality content more efficiently. This approach then gives you the freedom to integrate and connect DVHQ to your preferred downstream tools. So, if you're looking for help with strategy, ideation, planning, and collaboration, then we're the solution for you.